Now, let's learn about diving equipment. To stay safe and enjoy your time underwater, it's important to understand your gear and know how to use it properly. Today's lesson is divided into 3 parts. First, skin diving equipment needed for snorkeling. Second, scuba equipment that is essential for scuba diving. And lastly, other accessories. Just like in the picture, you should make it a habit to check and prepare each piece of equipment carefully before diving. Scuba equipment began development in the 1950s, and today it has become incredibly diverse and sophisticated. In diving, the level of dependence on equipment is extremely high. If the equipment does not function properly, or if you don't know how to use it, it can lead to serious danger. That's why it's essential to understand its components, functions, how to choose it, and how to maintain it. In this section, we will go over that basic knowledge step by step. Skin diving equipment is the most basic type of personal gear. Among these, it's especially important that your mask and fins fit your body well. If they are too big or too small, they can cause discomfort, let water in, or even injure your feet. You will continue to use this equipment when you go scuba diving as well, so it's important to choose good quality products from the start and get used to them. A mask creates an air space in front of your eyes. This is because, without air, objects underwater are hard to see clearly. Without a mask, your vision will be blurry and your sense of distance will be distorted. Also, if the nose section isn't enclosed, water can get into the mask and you won't be able to equalize pressure. Even though it may look simple, a mask has some very important functions. A mask is made up of several parts: lens, frame, skirt, nose pocket, and head strap with adjustment buckles. The tempered lens is designed so that even if it breaks, it won't cause injury. The nose pocket allows you to pinch your nose for equalizing pressure. The head strap should be adjusted so it's neither too loose nor too tight. The skirt, which touches your face, should fit softly and snugly to keep water out. By knowing the function of each part and using it properly, you can dive more safely and comfortably. Now, let's look at the types of masks and how to choose one. Masks are generally made from either rubber or silicone, but most modern masks use silicone because it feels softer on the skin and provides a better seal. Based on lens configuration, they can be single lens, double lens, or triple lens. Single lens masks offer a wide, open view. Double lens masks have separate lenses positioned closer to the eyes, reducing visual distortion. Triple lens masks add side lenses for even greater peripheral vision. Functionally, some masks come with purge valves. Others have prescription lenses for nearsighted divers, and some feature small lower lenses that act as reading magnifiers for presbyopia. When choosing a mask, the most important factors are its internal volume and how well it fits your face. A low-volume mask sits closer to the face, making equalizing easier. A high-volume mask provides a wider field of view, which is great for enjoying scenery. The best way to decide is to try it on and see which fits your face shape most comfortably and securely. Here, you can see prescription lenses for nearsightedness and corrective lenses for presbyopia. Prescription lenses work like regular eyeglasses, allowing divers with poor eyesight to see clearly underwater. Presbyopia lenses have magnifiers built into the lower portion, making it easier to read dive computers or gauges underwater. These days, you can even order custom-made lenses with your exact prescription, so divers with less than perfect vision can still enjoy a comfortable and clear diving experience. If you need them, it's best to consult with your instructor or a dive shop in advance. Now, let's talk about snorkels. A snorkel allows you to breathe while keeping your head underwater at the surface. It's especially useful when you want to rest or move on the surface without using the air from your tank. Its structure is simple: a tube, a mouthpiece, and a clip. The tube is usually made from rigid plastic, while the mouthpiece you bite is made from soft silicone. There are various types: J-shaped, corrugated, and curved designs. Some models come with a purge valve so you can easily expel water if it gets inside. Detachable clips make it easy to attach the snorkel to your mask. When choosing a snorkel, comfortable breathing is the most important factor. If the tube is too wide and short, breathing is easy, but clearing water becomes difficult. On the other hand, if it's too narrow and long, clearing is easier, but breathing becomes harder. For beginners or female divers, a snorkel with medium length and diameter is recommended. Also, a snorkel is typically attached to the left side of the mask strap. This is because the air supply hose connects on the right side. When selecting a snorkel, it's best to try it on and check how it feels to breathe through it. Next, we have fins. Fins are equipment that help divers gain propulsion in the water. They allow you to move forward with much less effort than when kicking in a swimming pool. They are made up of the foot pocket, blade, ribs, adjustable strap, and fastening device. Some foot pockets also have drainage holes to prevent water from pooling inside. These days, many fins use quick-release buckles like spring heel straps that make them easy to put on and take off. Different types of fins vary in blade shake and channel structure, which affects propulsion and flexibility. It's important to choose fins that match your strength and swimming style. In a moment, we'll also go over tips for selecting the right fins. Alright, now let's talk about fins. To move well underwater, you need equipment that effectively transfers the power from your legs. This is exactly what fins do. Fins are generally divided into full-foot and open heel types. Full-foot fins are worn barefoot in warm water, while open heel fins are worn over dive boots and secured with a strap or spring strap, making them popular in cold water. When choosing fins, consider the environment where you'll be diving, as well as your foot size and fitness level. For example, in strong currents, stiff fins can help, but if they're too rigid, your legs may tire quickly. Also, snorkeling fins and diving fins are different, so be sure to choose a model designed for scuba diving. Lastly, it's a good idea to carry spare parts like extra straps or fin buckles. If they break on site, it can be difficult to replace them. Equipment isn't something you just buy once. It also needs proper care and maintenance. After a dive, any salt from seawater or chemicals from pool water left on your gear can cause damage, so it's essential to rinse everything thoroughly with fresh water. Pay special attention to areas like mask and fin buckles, straps, and the inside of the snorkel, as sand or debris can get trapped there. If left unchecked, this can cause your gear to malfunction or break. Storage is also important. Keep your equipment in a cool, dry place away from direct sunlight or high heat. For example, leaving it in a car trunk can make plastic brittle and cause rubber to stick or crack. It's also best to store it separately from other gear that uses rubber and adhesives to prevent unwanted contact. By maintaining your equipment this way, you'll extend its lifespan and ensure it's safe to use on your next dive. Now, let's talk about wetsuits. Do you know how quickly your body loses heat underwater? It happens about 20 to 30 times faster than on land. That's why wearing a wetsuit is essential for enjoying diving safely. A wetsuit serves two main purposes. First, it helps maintain your body temperature. Second, it protects your body. For example, preventing injuries from bumping into coral or rocks or from jellyfish stings. Most wetsuits are made from a rubber material called neoprene. It's excellent for insulation, which makes it great for retaining warmth. Wetsuits also come in various styles and thicknesses, and the right choice depends on the water temperature and the dive location. Wetsuits vary depending on the environment and purpose, and there are three main types. 1. Bodysuit. Made of very thin fabric, mainly used in tropical waters for skin protection. For example, it shields against strong sunlight or jellyfish stings. 2. Wetsuit. The most commonly used type of diving suit. It fits snugly to the body, allowing a small amount of water to enter, which is then warmed by body heat to help maintain temperature. Widely used by divers from beginners to intermediate levels. 3. Dry suit. As the name suggests, it's designed to keep the body completely dry. It's worn over thermal underwear or insulating layers, allowing divers to maintain body heat even in cold water for long periods. However, because wearing and controlling buoyancy in a dry suit is more complex, it should only be used after receiving special training. When choosing a wetsuit, don't just go for what looks good. You need to consider your body shape, diving environment, and water temperature. For a wetsuit, it's essential to pick one that fits your body snugly so it can provide proper insulation. For a dry suit, choose the right thickness and material for the water temperature you'll be diving in, and consider the thermal underlayers as well to ensure you retain enough body heat. Also, having just the suit isn't enough. Additional gear such as dive gloves, dive boots, and a hood can greatly improve warmth, making your dives much safer and more comfortable. A wetsuit is essential gear when diving in relatively cold water or for extended periods underwater. It's usually made from neoprene material with a thickness between 3 mm and 7 mm, and it comes in various styles, so you can choose one based on the environment, water temperature, and your activity needs. The most important thing is to select a suit that fits your body snugly. If it's too loose, cold water will constantly flow in and prevent you from maintaining body heat, and if it's too tight, it can restrict movement or make breathing uncomfortable. Especially for beginners, it's common to sit around for a long time before and after a dive, but wearing a thick wetsuit under strong sunlight can increase the risk of heat stroke or heat exhaustion, so it's best to manage how long you wear it outside the water. Dive boots and gloves are essential not only for keeping warm, but also for safety. First, dive boots. They need to fit your feet well to provide proper insulation, and a sturdy rubber sole helps prevent slipping. They also make walking on rocks or moving around on a boat much safer. Next, gloves. These protect your hands. You could scrape them on sharp coral or rocks, and you might injure your hands when grabbing something underwater. They're usually made of neoprene, with the palms reinforced with tough, abrasion-resistant material for extra protection. They don't just keep your hands warm, they're essential for keeping your hands safe and functional during a dive. Do you know where the body loses heat the fastest? It's the head. That's why, when diving in cold water, a dive hood is so important. It covers your head and neck to help retain body heat, but if it's too tight, it can cause problems. For example, if it presses on the carotid arteries in your neck, it can reduce blood flow to the brain, making you feel dizzy or uncomfortable, and in severe cases, it may even trigger intense anxiety similar to claustrophobia. So it's important to choose a hood that fits snugly but not too tightly. Practice trying on different hoods until you find one that's comfortable for you. Now, let's talk about the dry suit. As the name suggests, it's a suit that keeps all water out. Because it creates an insulating layer of air inside, your body stays completely dry, and it helps maintain body temperature even in very cold winter waters below 10 degrees Celsius. You can also wear thermal undergarments inside the dry suit. They're warm enough that you could wear them on land and still feel comfortable. However, dry suits are expensive and a bit more complex to operate, so you need special training before using one. If you just put it on and dive in without practice, improper air control could make you suddenly float to the surface or lose your position in the water. That's why it's best to practice and get used to it before actual use. No matter how good a wetsuit you own, poor maintenance will shorten its lifespan. After diving, you should rinse it thoroughly with fresh water or a mild diluted detergent. If salt remains, the suit can become stiff or get damaged. It's especially important to turn it inside out and let it dry completely and hang it in a well-ventilated area to prevent mold. Gloves, boots, and hoods should also be washed together. When storing, never place heavy objects on top of the suit as it can lose its shape permanently. Ideally, hang it on a hanger and store it in a cool, well-ventilated place away from direct sunlight or heat. All right, the equipment we're going to look at now is the Buoyancy Compensator Device, abbreviated to BCD or BC. This is an essential piece of gear that helps you avoid floating up or sinking during a dive. For example, when passing over a coral reef, if we sink or rise, we could damage the coral. But by using a BCD properly, you can maintain a steady depth and reduce this kind of environmental damage. Also, staying in one position underwater reduces energy use, allowing you to dive longer and more comfortably. A BCD is designed to adjust your buoyancy by adding or releasing air inside it. So, if you want to float, you add air. If you want to sink, you release air. The purposes of using a buoyancy compensator device are: first, resting at the surface. When you come up to the surface, filling the BCD with air will keep you afloat without effort. You won't need to kick your fins, and you can relax, breathe easily, and wait or rest comfortably. Second, maintaining neutral buoyancy underwater. This is extremely important. By adjusting the amount of air, you can stop and stay exactly at your desired depth. With proper neutral buoyancy, you won't startle marine life, you can take better photos, and you can enjoy longer, easier dives. Let's take a look at the structure of a buoyancy compensator device, BCD. First, there's the inflator or deflator, which is the air control unit. It controls adding and releasing air. Press one button to let air in and another to let it out. Next, the air bladder, the space where air goes, is made of nylon and may be either covered with an outer shell containing a tube or coated for protection. Lastly, the harness is the part that secures the equipment to your body. Straps and buckles at the shoulders and waist make it easy to put on and take off the gear. Now let's look at the additional components of a buoyancy compensator device. First, there's the tank band and ring, which connect to the tank. These hold the tank firmly in place so it doesn't move around. Next are accessories like pockets, rings, and attachments for a weight belt. These can hold small gear or connect hooks. Another important feature is the overpressure relief valve. If too much air enters at once, the BCD could burst. This valve prevents that. When the pressure exceeds a certain limit, it automatically releases air to keep the equipment safe. Now, let's look at the different types of BCDs. First is the jacket type. This is the most common style, with an air bladder that wraps around the front, sides, and back of the body, giving it a comfortable fit and making it convenient for beginners. Second is the back mount type. As the name suggests, the air bladder is located only at the back. It's used together with a harness system and can provide more lift than a typical jacket type, making it popular not only for recreational diving, but also for technical diving or for divers carrying more equipment. The BCD you use has an inflator button and a deflator button. Pressing the inflator button sends air in through a low-pressure hose. The deflator button, on the other hand, releases air. There's also a method to add air orally by opening the valve and blowing air into the mouthpiece. This is considered a manual backup method. To release air, you can raise the button above your shoulder and press it, or pull the inflator hose downward. Many modern units combine this with an alternate air source, allowing both inflation and breathing through the same system. Since there are different designs, be sure to familiarize yourself with the structure before use. Some BCDs come with an integrated weight system. Instead of wearing a separate weight belt around the waist, these have a built-in structure that allows weights to be attached directly to the BCD. In an emergency, pulling a release handle quickly separates and drops the weight pouch, making it very safe. The advantages are easy adjustment and a comfortable fit, which is why they're also very popular among students. When choosing a BCD, comfort, the placement of the controls, and how easy it is to handle the adjustment straps are all important factors. Another key point is checking whether the inflator hose connection is compatible with your setup. In some cases, mismatched connections can make the equipment incompatible. You can also attach gear like an underwater slate, dive light, or pressure gauge to the shoulder straps or rings. Be sure to consider the mounting locations when making your choice. Before diving, you must always check your equipment. First, inspect for any air leaks and test the inflator button to make sure it works properly. Check the tank band and buckle as well, and make sure the band doesn't move up or down when tightened. After use, be sure to rinse the inside thoroughly with fresh water. Salt and debris can shorten the lifespan of your gear, so proper maintenance is essential. Now let's talk about the regulator. The main purpose of a regulator is to convert the high-pressure air in the tank into a low pressure that we can breathe. The first stage connects to the tank valve and reduces the pressure from high to intermediate. The second stage is attached to the mouthpiece, which you hold in your mouth, and it adjusts the air to a breathable pressure. Regulators generally come in two types, DIN and yoke, and the choice depends on the region or diving environment. Be sure to have students practice connecting both types during training. Now, let's talk about one of the most important pieces of scuba diving equipment, the regulator. As the name suggests, a regulator adjusts the high-pressure air stored in the cylinder to a breathable pressure as you inhale. When choosing a regulator, it's important that it fits comfortably in your mouth and provides a smooth, steady airflow. Some models also have valves to control airflow or devices to help direct it. Balance-type regulators are commonly used, as they are more stable and maintain consistent airflow even at greater depths. A regulator connects to several other components, most commonly the pressure gauge, an alternate air source, octopus, the BCD hose, and the dry suit hose. Since everything is interconnected, understanding the setup is very important. A regulator is a very delicate piece of equipment, and rough handling can quickly damage it. Always be careful not to drag it along the ground. Never pull on the hoses or subject it to impact. That's a sure way to cause damage. It's a good idea to use a regulator protector to help prevent wear. After a dive, always rinse it thoroughly with fresh water. You don't want any salt residue left behind. Make sure the dust cap is closed, as it keeps water from getting into the first stage. Remember, the regulator is your lifeline, so always handle it with care. Now let's talk about the alternate air sources, what we commonly call the octopus. When would you need it? First, if another diver runs out of air. Second, if your own regulator has a problem. In either case, the octopus is used to supply air. That's why it needs to be easy to find. It's usually bright yellow or another highly visible color, and positioned at the front of your body where it can be seen easily. Also, the hose should be slightly longer than the primary regulators, so there's enough space when sharing air. There are several types of alternate air sources. The most common is the standard octopus. Another type combines it with the BCD inflator. This allows you to inflate or deflate the BCD by pressing a button while also functioning as a regulator. You've probably heard of a pony bottle, a small, separate tank used as a backup, often in deep or technical diving. There's also emergency equipment like the EBS, Emergency Breathing System, which is made up of a very small tank and a mouthpiece. When choosing one, there are two key points. First, is it easy to breathe from? Second, is it highly visible? In an emergency, visibility is crucial so it can be used immediately. Now let's talk about the air tank or cylinder that we carry with us. Its most basic purpose is, of course, to store high-pressure air. Tanks are made of either aluminum or steel alloy. Aluminum is lighter and more resistant to rust, but it has slight positive buoyancy underwater. Steel tanks, on the other hand, are heavier in the water, so you can use slightly less weight. The most common size is an 80 cubic foot cylinder, which holds about 11 liters. When the air inside is used up, the loss of air weight causes positive buoyancy, so you need to account for this and wear the correct amount of weight. An air tank isn't something you just use and forget. Because it holds very high pressure, regular inspections are essential. First, a visual inspection should be done every year. This simply means looking inside the tank to check for corrosion, debris, or damage. A hydrostatic test should be done every 4 to 5 years. This is a more detailed check where the tank is filled with water and pressurized to see if there are any leaks. You must also have the tank inspected if it's been dropped, exposed to fire or excessive heat, or if it has an unusual smell. Never open the valve while the tank is submerged in water. This can let water inside, leading to corrosion. It's a very common mistake, so remember this. Lastly, while rinsing with fresh water is important, it's better to leave a small amount of air inside rather than emptying it completely, to prevent outside air from entering. Every cylinder has engravings that show manufacturing and safety information. These are required by law. For example, markings like DOT/TC indicate the regulatory authority, and 3AL means the tank is made of aluminum. 3000 psi is the working pressure, and you must be careful not to exceed it. You'll also see the manufacturer's name, a unique serial number, and the month and year of manufacture, which tell you when the tank was made and how often it needs inspection. The tank valve is a critical connection component. It releases high-pressure air from the cylinder and delivers it to the regulator. Most valves are the K-type, made of brass with a chrome coating for durability. At the connection point to the regulator's first stage, there must be an O-ring to prevent air leaks, and you should always check its condition before diving. Another important feature is the burst disc. If the tank is overfilled beyond its working pressure, the disc will rupture and release air quickly, preventing the tank itself from breaking apart. So, a valve isn't just an on-off switch for air. It's a precise and vital safety component. If something goes wrong with the valve, it can be extremely dangerous. One of the most common accidents is when a tank tips over and the valve takes an impact. For example, if it's in a car trunk without being secured, or if it's standing upright on the ground and someone bumps into it, causing it to fall. If the valve breaks or all the air escapes at once, the tank can shoot off like a rocket, causing serious injury to anyone nearby. That's why you should always store tanks lying down or use a securing device to make sure they can't fall over. When diving, your suit and equipment create buoyancy that makes your body want to float. Weights counteract this, helping you maintain neutral buoyancy. The basic type is a weight belt, which is a nylon belt with lead weights attached, and there are also integrated types with built-in weight pockets in the BCD. The buckle should allow for easy wearing and removal, and it must be designed so that it can be quickly released in an emergency. Let's take a look at the submersible pressure gauge, commonly called the SPG. This device is essential for checking, in real time, how much air is left in your tank while underwater. Since running out of air is one of the most dangerous situations during a dive, it's very important to get into the habit of checking your SPG frequently. SPGs generally come in two types. One is the familiar analog, needle-style gauge, board-and-tube type, and the other is digital, often integrated into a dive computer. The SPG connects to the high-pressure, HP, port of the first-stage regulator to measure tank pressure. There are a few important points to remember when using an SPG. First, position it toward the front of your BCD near your chest. This makes it easier to check frequently and reduces the risk of it snagging on seaweed or rocks. When opening the tank valve, always do so slowly. Opening it too quickly can send a sudden surge of pressure through the gauge and hose, causing strain or damage. Lastly, avoid putting excessive force on the high-pressure hose connection. Since hoses are consumable parts, they should be inspected regularly, and you should take care to prevent them from twisting or kinking. A dive computer is one of the key pieces of equipment responsible for a diver's safety. It automatically calculates dive time, depth, ascent rate, and no decompression limits, and it also estimates the amount of residual nitrogen in your body in real time. This helps divers dive more safely and reduces the risk of mistakes like exceeding ascent speed or missing a decompression stop. A dive computer constantly monitors your status and gives warnings when necessary, making it a valuable tool that provides a much safer diving environment than in the past. Dive computers come with a wide range of features. In addition to depth, time, ascent rate, and no decompression limits, they can also indicate decompression stops, surface intervals, and even flight wait times. The display may show information in numbers or graphics. Some models operate automatically, while others are manual, so it's important to read the product manual carefully and practice using it. There are two main types, wrist-mounted and console-mounted, with watch-style wrist models being more common these days. Maintenance is simple. Handle it carefully to avoid impacts and check and replace the battery regularly. There are some additional pieces of equipment that aren't essential for diving, but can be very useful. Common examples include a dive watch, depth gauge, compass, surface marker buoy, SMB, dive knife, and underwater light. Other items like gear bags, fins, logbooks, and slates also fall into this category. These can be chosen based on the diving environment, personal style, and the level of safety you want to maintain. For night diving, an underwater light is a must, and when surfacing, it's important to use an SMB to signal your location. A dive watch is an important backup tool to have in case your dive computer fails. It's especially useful for beginner divers or in situations where you need an extra way to keep track of time. In terms of components, it's similar to a regular watch but with a few added features. First, it has a rotating bezel that allows you to set a reference point for your entry time or a specific time marker. It also has a luminous dial or a backlight so you can easily read the time even in dark underwater conditions. The strap is long enough to be worn and removed easily even over a dry suit or thick wetsuit. Digital dive watches often include features like a timer, alarm, and log storage, making them convenient for different situations. It's a piece of equipment that can function perfectly well on its own. A depth gauge is a device that shows how deep a diver is underwater using water pressure to measure depth. It typically has a plastic or chrome-plated exterior with a transparent front window so you can see the inside. Inside, there's a container filled with air or oil, and the needle moves according to the water pressure. There are two main types, analog and digital. Though these days, most dive computers include a depth display, so it's less common to carry a separate gauge. However, some divers still bring one as a backup or for double-checking, and it's also useful for training to visually track depth changes. Models with a luminous dial or high-contrast numbers are easier to read in dark conditions, which is another advantage. Because visibility is limited underwater, a compass is a very important tool for accurately determining direction without relying solely on sight. It typically has a rotating bezel that lets you set a reference heading, and it includes a luminous feature so it can be used in dark conditions. One of its key components is the lubber line, which must be aligned with your body to get an accurate reading. Compasses come in two main types, wrist-mounted and console-mounted, and the choice depends on your equipment setup and purpose. When checking direction, it's crucial to keep the compass level. If it tilts, it can give an inaccurate reading, so during training, divers should practice holding it level until it becomes second nature. A surface marker buoy, or SMB, is a floating signal used to indicate a diver's position at the surface. It's made in bright colors like red or yellow so it can be seen from a distance, and it's usually an inflatable tube shape. An SMB is essential when surfacing far from a boat or after a drift dive to signal your pickup location. Because of its bright color and shape, it's sometimes called a safety sausage, and for added safety, it's a good idea to use it together with a whistle or air horn. Students should always learn how to use an SMB and practice deploying it during training dives. Dive knives may look like weapons, but in reality, they're tools for rescue and accident prevention. They're mainly used to free yourself or your buddy if you become entangled in fishing lines or ropes. The blade of a dive knife is made of rust-resistant stainless steel or titanium, and it's secured to the body with straps or snaps on its sheath. Common mounting spots include the inside of the thigh, on the BCD hose area, or on the calf. But the most important thing is that it's in a location where it can be drawn quickly. Students should understand why carrying a knife is important and practice how to use it in emergency situations. Underwater lights are essential not only for night dives, but also during the day. As you go deeper, light is absorbed and colors fade. By shining a light, the lost colors return, letting you see the true hues of fish and coral. Dive lights come in two main types, primary lights and backup lights, and most use an O-ring seal for waterproofing. Batteries should be fully charged before use, and it's always a good idea to carry a spare light as well. A gear bag isn't just for carrying equipment. It's a key tool for protecting and organizing your dive gear. Wheeled models make transport easier, while bags with handles and shoulder straps are useful for moving gear on boats or upstairs. The key is to pack items in reverse order of when you'll need them. On a boat, when you need to gear up quickly, the first items you need should be on top. For example, a wetsuit can go at the bottom, while your mask and snorkel should be placed near the top for easy access. A dive flag is a surface signal used to indicate a diver's presence for safety. It alerts nearby boats that there are divers in the water. There are two main types of flags. One is the red flag with a white diagonal stripe known as the diver down flag. The other is the international alpha flag, which is divided into white and blue. In open water, the alpha flag is the one most commonly used internationally. After a dive, it's important to get into the habit of keeping a record, and that's where a logbook comes in. Simply put, it's a personal journal of your dives. Typical entries include date and location of the dive, basic details like depth, time, water temperature, and visibility, dive buddies, impressions, and any special notes. These records can help you plan future dives and are also useful when applying for advanced certifications. While many dive computers now store this information automatically, writing it down yourself is still a great habit to have. Slates are plastic boards that can be written on underwater. Since talking isn't possible underwater, they're used when hand signals aren't enough. For example, explaining problem situations, jotting down details to record in logbooks later. Some slates even have maps or checklists printed on them, making them useful for underwater navigation. They're small but highly practical pieces of equipment. Let's review what we've learned with a few practice questions. 1. What is the primary purpose of snorkels? Answer: C. To breathe at the surface without lifting the face out of the water. The main purpose of snorkels is to allow divers to breathe comfortably while keeping their face in the water at the surface. They help conserve air before descending, during surface swims, or when returning to the boat or shore. 2. How can divers tell if masks fit properly? Answer: A. Hold the mask against the face and inhale through the nose. For a mask fit test, place the mask lightly on the face without using the strap and gently inhale through the nose. If the mask seals to the face and stays in place without falling, it fits well. The key is to check for natural suction, not by tightening the strap. 3. Which of the following is not suitable as a visual or audible signaling device for rescue? Answer: C. Slates. Slates are used by divers underwater to write messages for communication, often for passing information, giving briefings, or jotting quick notes. They are not suitable for rescue because they are only useful at close range. In contrast, SMBs are visual signaling devices that indicate a diver's position at the surface, and whistles are audible devices for calling for help at the surface. Rescue signaling devices must be visible or audible from a distance, which slates are not. 4. Which description of fins is incorrect? Answer: B. Full-foot fins have adjustable straps. Full-foot fins are designed like shoes, where divers insert their feet directly into the foot pocket, and they do not have adjustable straps. Adjustable straps are a feature of open heel fins, so this statement is incorrect. 5. Which description of wetsuits and dry suits is incorrect? Answer: D. A wetsuit forms an air layer between the suit and the skin. Wetsuits retain body heat by trapping a thin layer of water between the suit and the skin, which is warmed by the diver's body temperature to reduce heat loss. This water layer is not completely sealed, and a small amount of circulation occurs. An air layer between the suit and skin is a feature of dry suits, not wetsuits. 6. Which of the following is not something divers wear with a wetsuit or dry suit to increase thermal protection? Answer: ankle weights. Dive gloves, dive hoods, and vests are commonly used to increase warmth. Ankle weights have nothing to do with thermal protection. They are used to adjust leg buoyancy or balance during descent, so they are not appropriate for warmth. 7. Which of the following is an incorrect method for maintaining wetsuits? Answer: D. Store them folded. After use, wetsuits should be rinsed in clean, fresh water and dried in the shade where there is good ventilation. For storage, it's best to hang them on a hanger. Folding them can damage the creased areas or leave compression marks, shortening their lifespan. Neoprene material is especially vulnerable to folding, and leaving it folded for long periods can reduce its elasticity and affect performance. Therefore, storing them folded is an improper method and the correct answer here. 8. Which of the following is not information typically shown on dive computers? Answer: D. A buddy's dive time. A dive computer provides real-time information relevant to the diver wearing it. It does not display a dive buddy's dive time. Each diver has their own computer that records their own data separately. 9. What does the maximum depth reading on a dive computer mean? Answer: A. The deepest depth reached during the dive. The maximum depth is simply the deepest point reached during that dive. For example, even if you went down to 15 meters but spent most of the dive at 6 meters, the maximum depth would still be recorded as 15 meters. 10. What does the no decompression limit (NDL) mean? Answer: C. The maximum dive time allowed without requiring decompression stops. The NDL is the maximum time a diver can remain at a given depth without risking decompression sickness. If this time is exceeded, the diver must make decompression stops underwater to safely release dissolved nitrogen from the body. NDL values can be checked using dive tables or dive computers based on the current depth. 11. Which of the following is not something a dive computer typically warns about? Answer: D. Excessive descent rate. Dive computers issue various warnings to help keep divers safe, such as exceeding the NDL, ascending too quickly, skipping a safety or decompression stop, or ignoring required stops. However, they generally do not give a direct warning for descent rate. While descending too quickly can cause ear equalization issues, controlling descent speed is usually the diver's own responsibility rather than something a dive computer alerts for. 12. Which of the following is an incorrect statement about submersible pressure gauges? Answer: B. SPGs operate on intermediate pressure. SPGs work by receiving high pressure from the tank via the first stage regulator. Intermediate pressure is not directly related to how an SPG functions, so saying it operates on intermediate pressure is incorrect. 13. Which statement about weight systems is incorrect? Answer: D. In freshwater, divers need to wear slightly more weight than in saltwater. Saltwater is denser than freshwater, which means it provides more buoyancy. As a result, divers need less weight in freshwater and more weight in saltwater. The statement is reversed, so it is incorrect. 14. Which statement about underwater lights is incorrect? Answer: C. Backup lights are not used for night diving. For night diving, divers must carry a backup light in addition to a primary light. This ensures that if the primary light fails or the battery runs out, the dive can be completed safely and ascent can be done without risk. 15. Which statement about dive flags is incorrect? Answer: A. Dive flags are not mandatory. Dive flags are often required for diver safety. In many countries and regions, it is a legal or strongly recommended practice to display a flag to alert boat operators and others on the water that there are divers below. Saying they are not mandatory goes against safety rules and, in some places, the law. 16. Which statement about scuba regulators is correct? Answer: D. The most common form of an emergency air source is the octopus. A regulator supplies air regardless of depth, with the first stage reducing high-pressure air from the tank to intermediate pressure, and the second stage lowering it further to match ambient water pressure. Statements claiming it always converts to 10 bar or that the second stage delivers intermediate pressure are incorrect. Devices like octopuses and SPGs are connected to the first stage. 17. What is the inspection interval for visual cylinder inspections? Answer: A. 1 year. For scuba diving cylinders, regular inspections are essential for safety. A visual inspection checks the inside and outside of the cylinder for corrosion or damage, and the standard requirement is to perform this annually. 18. Which of the following is not a component of a compass? Answer: C. Burst disc. A compass is used for navigation and typically includes a magnetic needle, a lubber line to indicate the diver's heading, and a rotating bezel for setting direction. A burst disc, on the other hand, is part of a scuba tank valve. It ruptures to release air if internal pressure becomes dangerously high, preventing tank rupture, and is not a compass component. 19. Which statement about buoyancy compensator devices, BCs or BCDs, is incorrect? Answer: A. The most common type is the back mount style. The most common style of BCD is the jacket type, which is worn like a vest. Back mount BCDs have their air bladder located only at the back and are often preferred for technical diving or by certain divers, but for most recreational divers, the jacket type is the standard. 20. Which of the following is not typically mounted on a console? Answer: D. Surface marker buoy. A console groups together essential instruments divers need to monitor during a dive, such as a compass, SPG, or dive computer. A surface marker buoy, on the other hand, is a buoyancy device used at the surface to signal a diver's location or to mark an emergency from underwater. It is not mounted on a console. Instead, it is stored folded in a BCD pocket or carried separately. Let's wrap up by reviewing what we learned today. Scuba diving is a sport that relies on equipment. Once divers become comfortable with their gear, diving becomes much easier, safer, and more enjoyable, which is why understanding equipment is so important. Today, we covered a variety of equipment, such as regulators for breathing, air tanks for storing air, dive computers for tracking depth and time, and wetsuits and buoyancy compensator devices for protection and comfort. All of these pieces of equipment are essential for helping divers stay safe and comfortable underwater. When it comes time to choose or use equipment, what you've learned today will be a valuable guide. Do you have any questions about what we covered today? If there's anything you didn't fully understand or would like to know more about, feel free to ask anytime.